welcome to our next live Q&A with our coaches for the Strategic Assistant course. We've got Sherwin and Amanda with us today, and we are going to be focusing on module 5 through to module 9. So really, since the last time we had our live Q&A, I've got questions to ask Amanda and Sherwin that are going to just go in a little bit more detail on what we've covered over those modules and just get a little bit more perspective on some of the areas that we've shared with our students. So first of all, Sherwin, thanks for joining us. Amanda, thanks for joining us. I hope that you're both well.
Thanks so much for having us.
My pleasure. So we'll let people in as they come through. I'll make sure that I'm letting everybody in. Okay, so far so good. Okay, well, as I said, we're going to run through module 5 through to 9, and we covered quite a lot in those modules. So one of the areas that we started with was looking at the inner circle that Sherwin did a fantastic module for us, looking at how you can build your influence, start to work more productively with those that work around your executive or executives. And Sherwin, if we start with you, one of the challenges that a lot of assistants face, and I get this question quite a lot, is how to build that influence with your executives, kind of stakeholders and direct reports and people within the inner circle. Particularly, one of the issues that assistants struggle with is the inner circle bypassing the assistant to get to the executive. So do you have any tips for our students on how to manage that and where to have those conversations and where to start getting those colleagues to come to you first?
Yeah, so what I normally say is, so the first thing that, firstly, what we need to do is, or what we need to think about is getting the exec on board, because I think that's the most important part of it. So once you've got your exec on board, have them lay down a message first. So often people look at the exec and they go, what they say is the way to do it. So what I normally say to people is get the exec to kind of lay the message out to the people that report into them, especially that inner circle. So the rest of the exco or the senior managers in the business, let him or her lay the message down to say, listen, if you need my time, please approach Sherwin. Or please approach my EA or whatever, and they will then assist you to do that. What you need to realize is that it takes a while. So repetition is key here, where your exec goes to bat for you all the time. Having said that, I've been doing the role for 4 years, and I still have people bypassing me to go to my exec. And the positive is every single time she would say, well, you should have gone to Sherwin and he could have helped you. So get your exec to bat for you is the first one. And then repetition is the second one. But then things to remember is that your role as the assistant to the exec is as a gatekeeper. And I hate the term gatekeeper because it almost signifies that you kind of lock them behind these doors and no one goes through unless they go through you. Your role as an EA isn't to lock them away and control their time. Your role is to make them more strategic. So when people come to you and they ask you for time, the number one thing for you to do is to find out why they want the time. So check what the strategic objective of the time is. I mean, a lot of us know that you get so many invites to meetings and 90% of those invites don't have any agenda in it. And what my executive and I have done is we've said that if a meeting comes through without an agenda or without a strategic objective, I decline it.
Wow.
So the rest of the business actually knows that the role of a CEO, COO, anyone in the C-suite is to strategically take the business forward. So when you're having them sit in a meeting for 2 hours and there's no strategic objective, and it's just for them to actually hear what you're saying, that's better done over an email or over an informal coffee. Then send an invite for an informal coffee chat about X. But then training, and like I say, you've got to make sure that you keep reinforcing the point of, if you want time, ask me and I will make it happen. The key there is the will make it happen, because often assistants say, yeah, I'll get back to you, and they don't get back to you. And that's when they start bypassing you, because they They don't want to give me the time, so I'm just going to go directly to them. Another thing is to encourage your executive to kind of share their inbox with you so you can kind of see when these invites come in, because it's hard to just manage a diary because all you see is the meeting requests coming through. You don't see the information behind it. There might have been 3 or 4 emails before that where you kind of got the information as to why they called that meeting. So have the chat with your exec and say, can I have access to your inbox? And then also with the inbox comes your calendar so that I can strategically manage. Again, it's all about being strategic as in this business at the moment. So I can strategically manage the meetings that you're in. And that way you can then start going, okay, that doesn't really need a meeting. We can move that to a coffee chat, or setting up regular one-on-ones, monthly one-on-ones with whoever reports into him so they can just have an informal chat and a little gossip. And then the last thing is to make sure that at the end of the day, you go back and you recap what's happened with those meetings that were in the diary. Because that's where you get the most information. And I always have a half an hour session at the end of the day, regardless of who's leaving early. Whoever's in the office, whoever's leaving first, I put that meeting in and I say, this is to recap the day. And it doesn't have to be about tomorrow or the day after that. It's about what happened today and what strategically is going to affect what happens tomorrow, the week after that, the month after that.
Yeah, there's so many good points there. One that I just wanted to pick up on, you said that when a meeting comes through without an agenda or any kind of strategic objectives, you reject them. Was that your decision? Was that your executives? How did you, have you had pushback on that?
So yes, so in the beginning there was lots of pushback. Everyone kept going, why are you cancelling my meeting? Why are you declining my meeting? I really need them in the meeting. And I actually then had a conversation with my exec and I said, we need to decline these meetings because people need to learn how to be strategic. And the only way to teach them is to kind of, and my thinking is, you're always teaching them the hard way. So, I mean, it happened for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden there was a one-liner and then I went back and I said, this is not enough information. Let me know what the outcome is. And you slowly start teaching people how to think strategically. And as an executive, your role is to be strategic and to make everyone under you work better. So we then had a conversation within one of the EXCO meetings where we said, please let the rest of the business know that if you want a meeting with whoever's on the C-suite, whoever's a senior manager, it needs to come through with an agenda and an output. And eventually, I mean, you still have these odd meetings that come through. And as an assistant, having access to the inbox if it comes through and it has a title and you've seen it in the inbox and you read the information or the pack behind it, you can make a decision. I'm not saying decline every single meeting, but I decline most of it. Unless I know that this is really urgent and they really need it done now, I will then accept it and then say, listen, please just put a few lines in about what you're going to discuss and what the output is. Because you must remember, the exec goes through 8 meetings a day or 10 meetings a day of an hour each. At the end of the day, they don't remember what happened at 8 o'clock in the morning. And for them to go back into their diary and actually say, oh, okay, the 8 o'clock meeting was an HR meeting, and these were the outcomes. And what we've done with my exec is I've said to her, I want you to open up your Outlook when you're in the meeting and just capture in what happened so that when I go in, I can see what's happened. And I know that if there's anything for me to do, you don't have to come to me. I can just go and check your diary and see, oh, the outcome is that we need to do a performance appraisal on X person. And I can go and set that up without them having to come to my desk and spend an extra 5 minutes explaining why. I can just go and do it.
Yeah, completely. I love your tough love stance. It's brilliant. Brilliant. This is how you be strategic. Amanda, is there anything that you would like to add around getting colleagues to come to you rather than to your exec?
Yeah, I think I firstly want to say, well done. I love Sherwin's approach. We will not go ahead unless you've, included the strategic objective of this meeting. I think you have to set those levels of boundaries. It's really important as an assistant. We all know that. I think that's a great takeaway. I would say the thing that I would add here is that we are always training our environment every single day. Everything we do, every way that we respond, what we say, how we act, everything we do, whether it's the things that we're conscious of and the things that we're unconscious of, we are training our environment to treat us a certain way. And I remember very early, not very early on, I would say my last executive assistant role, but in that role that I was there, that's where transformation just happened for me, because I had an amazing mentor. However, I remember early on in that job where I was saying I wanted to be this strategic assistant that, understood the business and all of the things that were associated with that. However, my actions weren't a match for what I was saying. So I was saying, come to me, I'm the one you should be coming to. But the way I was responding, the way I was acting wasn't necessarily congruent with what I said I wanted. So I think that's a really important thing to ask yourself, why are they not coming to you? Is there context missing for them? Have you maybe not informed them that actually now what we're trying to do here is I'm trying to develop my skills to be more, to match my executive and to be a better support for them. So I really need you to come to me first so that I can understand and really being able to better assist in any way. So, that's the first question I always say is why are they acting like that? What's hasn't shifted for them? And I would add to Sherwin's point, I know we're reiterating a lot, but it's just so congruent, is, it's showing up every single day to that effect. Because at first you'll be saying to yourself, you might be saying right now, I am doing that. We are doing that. I'm doing that every single day, and they still don't see me like that. Trust me, they will if you are consistent. And it does take consistency and constantly showing up in that way. It's like anything, going to the gym, you don't get a six-pack by going once and going, oh, well, I didn't get it, so I'm never going again. You have to do it every single day, over and over again, until it starts to show up. And it's the same when we're shifting and changing our perspective in the environment. And we're trying to get them to come to us first. We don't just one day go, well, I'm a strategic assistant, you should come to me first. It's, there's an adaptation, there's a shift that needs to occur. And they will start to shift if they can understand your perspective, if you can give them the context, and if you keep showing up. They won't do it straight away. I know that from my own experience. We've all been there. We'd all agree. It won't happen straight away, but it will definitely happen if you're consistent with the results.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's one of those annoying things, isn't it? What you actually find with consistency as well, that it starts to affect you inside and your own mindset. When you start seeing yourself consistently reaching and acting at that level, it really helps your own confidence as well. There's always going to be colleagues that will bypass you because they feel like that's their kind of right to do so. And that's, I think, where also Sherwin said, what comes in there is training your executive to push back on those individuals who just feel like they have that ear of the executive and they don't need to speak to the executive assistant. I think we're always going to have people in the company that act like that, and that's where your executive comes in as well, where you've got that relationship. So I want to move on to my next question. Again, this theme runs throughout the course, but it's something I think that we mentioned quite a bit in module 6, and that's having your own super strengths and understanding the things that are innately within you that you put in the role that add value. So I know that it's very unique to each individual, and we all do have very unique strengths that we can use and we can pull on to really excel in the role. But I wondered, Amanda, if we start with you, with yourself and with the other executive assistants that you've trained, are there particular super strengths that work really well for high-flying assistants that you've kind of seen over the years that you go, oh yeah, that's a common thing?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest one that I see is awareness, self-awareness. What can get in the way for many assistants I actually talked about this, Nikki, on the session that I ran last week that you joined on Friday, was the stages that executive assistants go on, their career stages.
So good, by the way, Amanda.
Yeah. Well, it's just so powerful because we've never been able to articulate where we are. We've just gone, oh, I'm stuck, or I'm this. We've never really been able to articulate it like that. And I think that self-awareness, knowing where you are right now and what you need, what support you need, what skills you have, what skills you don't have, is really, really powerful. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the most powerful things I would see in any assistant that's really taking that upward swing to becoming that really strong strategic assistant. It doesn't happen out of not knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at, and also knowing, having awareness of your capabilities, your skills, and really knowing yourself deeply. I would say probably one of the biggest ones. What else would be things that I've seen? I think like having an understanding of who they are authentically, so that they can live that and be that every day, and not be coming from a place of needing to control it, hold it, or ego. It's like, I know who I am, I know what I can do, and it's about us doing this together. And that can be a total shift, a total mentality shift, that when assistants get to that point where they understand that it's not about them anymore, it's about the business, it's about everyone, we're all in it together, things just shift dramatically, because it's about us all doing it together to get the end result. So that awareness level, but I would also say, really understanding authentically who they are and living that every day is really powerful as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just doing even the basic tests, the personality tests, it really does, some of them, they are general, and some of them, obviously, if you spend the time in it, really hone down. But they are so helpful, even in the first instance, of just starting to understand why you react to things, the stories that you tell yourself. All that kind of work is helpful in life as much as it is for the EA role. Sherwin, if we bring you in, is there anything you see in yourself that you think is incredibly valuable, or other assistants you've worked with?
Yeah, so like Amanda said, I believe the most important thing is obviously to be your authentic self, because a lot of EAs go out there and their egos get in the way of doing the job. And I've seen this countless times. I mean, those that work in the business or are still working in the business will know. Everyone has that assistant in the business that is so ego-driven. And because she or he is the EA to the CEO or the board of directors or whatever, they feel like they are everything. So to be your authentic self and to show up in that way just shows people that they can come to you and you can solve their problems. The other things that I always think about, and this is probably a cliche, but to be flexible. A lot of EAs try and stick to the rules of the game, but there comes a time in the game where you can't stick to the rules, and you've got to color outside the lines. So to be flexible in terms of ensuring that you are always trying to assist, because I mean, EA, the second part of the word of executive assistant is to assist. Your role is there to assist someone to be better. So be flexible and assist at all times where possible. And then a big thing for me is being approachable, because people aren't going to come to you if you're not approachable. They will bypass you and they will go to your exec, and you'll see that happen more and more. And that's where you need to sit down and actually look at yourself and go, what is it about what I am portraying to other people that makes them do this? You were talking about personality tests, and I mean, when I started my role now, the first thing we did was an Enneagram test, my executive and I, and we sat down and we went, what number are you? And she was a number 1, which is a perfectionist. And I went, oh, I don't think I can do this. And I came out, I was a number 8, and I was like all over the place. And we actually found middle ground. So that personality and making sure that you pair up, and then you start giving each other leeway for being the people that they are, helps you do your role. And then the third one is I always say to guys, don't stop learning. The moment you stop learning is the moment that you're dead in the water. Whether it's learning how to use new tech, whether it's learning to write more professionally, or learning to speak in front of people. I always say to assistants, don't stop learning. Learn a new language, and do it over a year. I'm not saying go out and spend thousands of dollars or thousands of rands on a course, but do it in small increments so that you can show that you're actually developing yourself, because that is the biggest skill that every assistant should have, is to develop yourself every single day. find in your day something that teaches you something new.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. I think it's so important. And I would just also add to be curious as well, because I think it kind of ties in with what you said there, Sherwin. It's just, if you're reading the emails and you're not quite sure why something is how it is or why a decision has been made, go and find out why. Go and make sure that you're educating yourself and asking questions and being interested in what's going on in the business, because half the time that's when you find out things that really help you think more strategically and make decisions and understand the bigger picture and why people are doing certain things and why the business is moving in one direction rather than the other. I think all of your points are incredibly valid. There are, as I said, it's kind of unique to each individual, but I think there are a set of super strengths that you can work on if you feel like maybe that you're not as developed in those areas as you could be, for sure, that help all high-flying assistants.
Yeah, and then just exactly what you were saying about if you don't understand terminology or you don't understand why something's happening, what we do is a little tip for everyone is every week we have a Q&A session, my exec and I. And in the Q&A session, I get to ask 5 questions and they get to ask 5 questions. And majority of the time, their 5 questions are, have you booked my travel? Have you done this? It's all mundane things. And I go, yes, 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 yes. But I take my 5 questions and I actually plot it out for the week. And I go, I want to know more about why we are doing X. I want to know, so the more you involve yourself and the more you start understanding the business, the more strategic you can be. A lot of assistants just sit behind their computer, and I'm not taking a dig at assistants, but they sit behind their computer and they scan through the emails. Yes, they read the emails, but do you read to understand, or do you just read because you want to know what's going on? And as a strategic assistant, your part of your role, and it doesn't say it in your job description, is you need to read to understand, to be able to articulate what needs to happen in the future. And that's why we have a Q&A session.
Yeah, that's so true. Sorry, I'm going to write that down.
100%. I have to jump in because I'm like chomping at the bits to get involved here because I couldn't agree any more. And in fact, something that just popped up in terms of, what would be a good skill set. And, Sherwin, you've been alluding to it, but it's thinking. It sounds like the simplest of all things, but it's actually thinking before taking action. Assistance historically, if we go way back to what it used to be, it was very task focused. It was very task driven. And a lot of it is automated where you learn it and then you don't really need to think through it. And emails is an example of that. It can be, Sherwin, where you're just going through it and looking, do I need to do anything? Does my executive need to do anything? And that's kind of the mentality behind it. But what we don't do a lot of the time, and what was probably, I would say, up there with one of the highest ones, is think about it. And a simple thing is, all of this kind of falls inside of it, really. Thinking is probably high level. Like if you think about being curious is an example of thinking, really doing that thinking or asking questions. And, the Q&A is a perfect example of that too. It's so important. I can't stress it enough. And it really is just taking a step back before you're doing what you're doing and just asking, have I thought about all the options here? Have I done some thinking here? Have I just done what I've always done? I couldn't agree more. I love that you brought it up.
Yeah, I would imagine as well, because I think a lot of assistants, if they were like, great, I'm going to write down 5 questions and I'm going to go and ask my executive to explain them to me, there might be a slight hesitation. Oh, they're busy. They're, they just want to focus on what work I've completed. But I would imagine, Sherwin, your executive has spent the time telling you the answers to the things that you need to know, and he's probably quite impressed that you're asking those kind of questions.
No, I mean, the 5 questions, maybe one of it they can't tell me because it's still in infancy stage, or they can't divulge the details. But what they will say is that they'll tell me exactly that. They'll say, I can't tell you now, but in 3 weeks' time, write that question down and we can talk about it. And it's the only thing that actually prepares me to help them. And the first time we did it, my questions were really basic because I just didn't know what I thought 5 questions. I'll ask you about your day. I'll ask you whatever, and then slowly started getting into it. And they slowly started being not just, and the trick is to not just have a five-word answer. The trick is to get them to actually talk about it. So an hour and it's 5 questions. And you can actually, you have enough time to go into detail. It's when you start trying to rush it and you put 15 minutes into ask 5 questions and it's like, yes, no, maybe, I'll tell you next week or whatever. Actually go into the detail and say to them, I'm not here because I want to, I'm here because if you tell me, I can anticipate, I can respond. I don't have to be reactive. I can be proactive. And that is another one of the super strengths is historically assistants were reactive. We did everything after being asked to do it. So can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. Being strategic means being proactive. And those 5 questions help me be proactive every single day. Because if I'm not proactive, I'm not doing my job. And Amanda, you've trained assistants all over. And I mean, Nikki, you've done the same. Proactiveness always comes up. Assistants always ask, how can I be more proactive? And the only way you can be proactive is by getting information to be proactive, or getting the information you need to make decisions to be proactive.
Yeah, it's all about information. I don't know if Amanda, you agree. It's all about information. You can't make any decision unless it's informed. You certainly can't make the right decisions unless they're informed. And again, as one of the things I always say with proactivity is having that confidence. And again, you're not going to have that confidence to make decisions unless they're based on something that you know for sure. Amanda, would you agree? Proactivity for me is like, that's so important. It's fundamental.
It's so important. And, to both your points, productivity, geez, it's a deep hole. We could talk about that all night, really. There's so many layers to productivity. But I think, what I always say with productivity is that you need to understand what you're doing to be able to make really smart decisions around where you're spending your time. Because if you don't know, it's going to be really hard for you to decide where you focus your energy, where you focus your time. So it's that whole understanding piece. It's that whole seeking to understand that's really, really important for you to even, start to be productive. And of course, there are so many layers inside of that. But, I really think a big part of it is understanding what it is that you're working on, what's most important, really from a business perspective, so that you can really choose where your time is allocated.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to move on to another question. And again, it's something that we talk about a lot, and that's building your network and your personal brand. And Amanda, when you started this module, it really struck me something you said, which was so many people go, oh, do I really? Do I have to be doing this? And I'm absolutely one of those people. So can you give any tips to anybody that's just is a reluctant networker?
Yeah, I love that so much, because every single time I talk about it, it's the same response. Yeah, I think what the biggest challenge with when you talk about networking or building your brand, which is really an outcome of networking, is that we think about brand, we have views about what that means, and we don't really, a lot of the time, we don't know what that even looks like for an assistant. What does it mean if I was to say I'm building my brand? Do I have to? I'm not really the front of I'm not the executive. I don't need to have a brand. But we forget that building your brand is, really the name of the game when it comes to shifting perception. And most of us are in the game of shifting perception, I would say. If you're in this course, it's likely that you want others to start seeing the value that you bring and that you are a strategic assistant. So building your brand isn't necessarily just what it looks like, what you look like, or how you dress, or how you do your hair, or any of that. It's how you talk, it's how you walk, it's how you interact with people, it's how you take action, it's how you get results or how you don't get results. Are you the person that everyone comes to because you'll always be there, or are you the person that pushes back in the organization? There is already a construct of who you are out there, and this is the whole training your environment. And I would say one of the biggest challenges for assistants when it comes to building their brand is, because building your brand is an outcome of networking. Networking gives you an opportunity to represent your brand, and that is what's going to allow you to shift your perception. But I would say one of the challenges that get in the way of people doing that is that they don't have, and this is certainly my experience as an assistant. When I was working as an executive assistant, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I represented. I didn't know who I wanted to be seen as. I didn't know how how me saying yes to everything would actually have a flow-on effect in how people represented me or how I was being represented. I didn't get that. And I didn't know who I really wanted to be seen as. So I think the first part to that is really knowing who you are on the inside so that you can represent that on the outside through your actions, through the way that you represent yourself in what you say and what you do. So that's the first piece. And the second piece to that is understanding what are some of the barriers that you have that are getting in the way of you representing that. So, for example, I believed that I was just an assistant. I think anyone could resonate with that at some point in their career. Where there was limits, we were put in a box and we couldn't do that, but we can do this, but we can't do this. And that, whether or not we're consciously aware of it, it's actually a barrier for us to represent ourselves as our true, authentic self. And I think that that's a really big piece to this is knowing what are those barriers so that you can break free of them. And I think that the just assistant thing, I'm not going to spend long on there because it's been done to death, but I hear it all the time. Assistants saying, I'm not just an assistant. Yet the thing I always follow it with, what are your actions telling everyone though? Because if your actions are represented in a way that you are representing just the assistant, the traditional assistant role, then, why would anyone think anything different? And networking is not getting together and just having some wine. It's actually getting your brand, who you are, out there. So going to meetings that you wouldn't normally go to and representing who you want others to see you as. So if you're wanting to be more than just an assistant, how are you representing yourself in that meeting? Are you there taking minutes, or are you there participating and adding value? So that's the way that I think about networking. Of course, you can do it from a social perspective, and that's incredibly valuable to expand your network. But it's the simple things. It's, going to a meeting with your executive and not being there just to hear. It's actually adding value. And I know we've all been in meetings where we've heard something, we wanted to say it, but we don't, and we know it's valuable. So it's all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just touching on your point there about attending meetings, one of the things that I think it was maybe the last module, I put up a template on that detail how assistants can have conversations with their executive, explaining to them why it's so important that they attend meetings. Because quite often that kickback isn't necessarily from the other people in the meeting, although that does happen. It's sometimes your executive not understanding why you would be in the meeting with them in the first place and where the value is with that. So I have a template that's up on, I think it's maybe up on the community, which talks through how you have that conversation and explaining the benefits. Because as you said, it's not just going to meetings to take the minutes, it's going into the meetings, adding value, actioning things as they are happening, and your executive not having to then, as Sherwin said earlier, spend 10 minutes explaining to you what happened in the meeting. It's one of those things that we can do which helps you build your brand, helps you build your network. I think it's so important. So important. Yeah. Sherwin, is there anything you would like to add? I know that you do that. You do attend meetings with your executive, but just in terms of building your brand and your network, how did you go about that and what value have you found in it?
Yeah, so for me, the first thing I always say when people say, well, how do you build a network and how do you portray your brand? Because I always say you've got to, like Amanda says, you've got to start your brand before you can network. So you've got to actually show, again, your authentic self and who you are as a person first and foremost, and then carry that through to who you are as an assistant. And then taking that one, I always call it like an onion, you're peeling it back layer by layer. You're going through, you're starting in the middle, and then you're slowly working your way out to the point where you've actually got everyone that is associated with the business or knows the business would know you. One of the ways I do it is, like you mentioned before, is I go to meetings with my executive. Some of the meetings, yes, I do take minutes. and some of them I don't. And I know assistants always say, how do you get to go to a meeting and not take minutes? And I always say to them, well, again, it's the relationship that you have with the executive. It's that inner circle that I speak about. Once they say, Sherwin's here to join the meeting because he's got something to say, or Sherwin's here to participate, people start including you and they start sharing information, and you can then start deciphering and start adding value. I always say, when you build your brand, you build a currency to build your network, because brand brings currency and currency brings network, because people always are attracted to currency. They want to be with the person that has the biggest wallet, or the brand wallet, I call it. So, and then also reaching out. A lot of people think that when networking, it's only the people around you that really need to see what you're doing. My thing is, whoever you meet, wherever you meet them, is a networking opportunity. Whether it's 30 seconds, 1 minute, 1 hour, it's a networking opportunity. And it's an opportunity for you to call on someone when you need it. And as assistants, that is gold. Many of us sit in the office and you often try and go, your executive's traveling, or and something goes wrong. And what do? You reach out to your network. And if your network's small, you don't have the leeway or the resources to get things right. So I always say, whoever you meet, wherever you meet them, in whatever circumstance you meet them, take down a name, take down a contact number or the company they were from, and then network with them on LinkedIn. What I always try and do is, when I meet someone, I always write down a name, and then I try and get an email address or business card, and I'd actually follow it up with an email saying, so nice to meet you last night at the company dinner. If you need anything. And those are the times where you actually need to network, as company dinners, company dues, where you've got clients coming in, and you actually you're sending it out, and you're saying, if you need anything, I'm your person. And that to me is everything. Making sure that the network is there to help you. Your network is always there to help you, because you never know. You might be walking in the streets and you meet someone, and 3 months down the line, that is the exact person you need to speak to, but you didn't take the time to actually network or get to know them or find out what they do or whatever the case is.
Yeah, it's funny how things work out like that, isn't it? It's amazing when you do start to network, how you notice these kind of serendipitous things where you were like, if I hadn't have spoken to that person, then I wouldn't have been able to get the help that I wanted. I just wanted to add, a good way I always used to find of practicing networking was, this was back in the days when we were in offices, but one of the tasks that I think most assistants have is collecting the person from reception who is going into the meeting with your executive. And I always used to try and make a really great first impression, whether it was a client or a family member, whatever it happened to be. I would always make sure I had like a series of questions in my mind about, just to have that conversation because it could always be quite awkward as you were leading somebody through to an office. So just trying to have that initial bit of networking where you're asking a couple of questions, making them feel at ease. It's a really good way of practicing go later down the line when you go to a networking event. I always found that really helpful. And actually, you never know who that person is, or well, obviously you do want to know who that person is, but you never know how they might impact you later down the line. So it's a little tip there, just practicing when we're back in offices, we're having those conversations. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left and I've got a few more questions. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is something that I brought up in one of my sessions, was around dealing with trade-offs. So when we are working in a strategic way and we're understanding our executives' objectives, we understand the overall strategy of the business, there are always going to be trade-offs. And a lot of the time it's the assistant saying to their executive, okay, this something Amanda said last week, this bright shiny new thing that you want to work on, but here's all the stuff that gets dropped when you now want to focus on this. So Sherwin, if we start with you, how do you have does that happen with you? And then how do you have those conversations with people about, well, this was a priority, you want to shift priorities, these are the trade-offs? Just, have you got any experience of that, and how did you manage it?
Yeah, so I mean, working with execs, I mean, they're like a dog with a toy. Every time a new toy comes in, they want to play with that toy and they forget about the other things. So what I've learned over the years is I've actually had to have the conversation and actually say to them, yes, I see that in 3 months' time, this is where we want to go. Or at the moment, you want to switch direction and you want to go there. But we have that conversation around what happens if we just let go of what we've been doing. My executives taught me this, is you always try and tie back the trade-offs to what your objectives are. So if the trade-off is too big and it affects your KPIs or the business's you don't do it. If the trade-off, if you can do it in parallel without denting the other thing or without putting the other thing down, then that's fine. What I've also learned is, by becoming strategic in the role that I do, a lot of the job that my executive does, if they need to focus on something and I need to pick up the slack for 3 weeks, I'm there to pick up the slack. And again, what it does is it boils down to the information. Because I've had the information fed to me throughout our time, I'm able to pick up those trade-offs and say, okay, fine, you know what? If you want to go and pursue that, what I'll do is I will actually go and I'll go to these meetings and I'll give them this feedback and I'll ask them to give us this by X dates. And then you can go and you can focus on what you need to focus on. And then when you're ready to come back, I will feed all that information back to you so that you're able to pick up where we left off. What I kind of feel with some execs are they're not very open to having you do things for them. So especially when it comes to strategic objectives or meetings where there are decisions being made or whatever. So 90% of executives will say, no, it's fine, I'll do all of these things. And what I do is I turn my computer on and I show them the diary and I say, okay, you show me where you're going to put this in. Because it's not going to be you who's sitting up until 10 o'clock at night trying to fit everything. It's going to be me. So show me the 15 minutes where you want to go to the loo between these 10 meetings.
Yeah.
Show me exactly how, when you have a board meeting in 2 weeks, how you're going to get all your things out in those 2 weeks. And I'll open up the calendar for a month and I'll say, here you go. This is what you're doing. So if we trade off, it's almost like playing Chinese checkers. I'll take that one from you, and then you can put that in the hole. But then remember, taking that away, 3 moves down, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to report back to the board. So actually showing them what the consequences are of doing those trade-offs is the biggest win. Because when they see it's almost like a light bulb goes off and they go, actually, I cannot do it. And can you actually help me get 3 other people involved and let them kick this off, and then I will join once I've finished off my task.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, isn't it? Particularly with a calendar, when it is literally like color-coded and detailed. It's amazing when an executive goes, oh yeah, lunch. Yeah, how am I going to fit that in? Amanda, to bring you in, is there anything that you would add there around trade-offs and how you manage them with colleagues or executives?
Sherwin, you've nailed it. I think it's really, focusing on the impact. What makes executives so incredibly powerful in their job is their ability to see possibility. That's a great thing. And it's also a terrible thing for keeping on track. It's like shiny thing syndrome. The minute they see something exciting, they want to go that way. It's like a dog with a bone. And I think, that's a really powerful thing, but it also gets in the way when they say yes to everything. And I think that's exactly, to your point, Sherwin, is just really getting them to see the impact. That's all we can do as assistants. If you can really show the impact of what this is going to do, and, I think giving them the visual of their calendar is there's nothing better. I remember my last executive was very much this way inclined, where he would always say yes to things and new clients. And that would mean that I'd be flying out next week and I'd have interviews all week. And then when you start looking at that and you go, well, how could you actually do that? Tell me how you could do that and then we'll make it work. And when they realize actually that's going to impact all of these other things, including quite often their health and well-being, it becomes pretty obvious what decisions they make. But the impact, that's all we can do is just highlight the impact of doing it. And then at the end of the day, they can still choose. And sometimes that has been the case. And you sit back and go, well, I hate to tell you that we did go through this, but it's all we can do, right? We've got to just share and be observers of where we are right now, where we want to go, and, you know, how far we're off track and how much this is going to impact us if we do this. I think that's incredibly valuable. If we can do that, then that's definitely one step apart from so many other assistants.
I completely agree. And I think obviously there are, as Sherwin said, there are going to be times when they go, no, actually, this is really worth it. And that's when you start being flexible and you start to manage their trade-offs for them. I think that was a really important point that you made there, Sherwin, as well. Being the person that manages the trade-offs and actually being the person that communicates those trade-offs to the people that are going to be impacted by them as well. I think saving your executive having to do that as well can sometimes be quite a useful, having to communicate disappointment and things like that. Yeah. Part of the job as well.
I must say, I love the part where you actually turn around and go, well, today you can't go to the loo, have lunch, and you need to leave at 8 o'clock. That's the best part for me, because they say yes, yes, yes. And it comes in and I go, are you sure you want to have this done? And they go, yeah, no, I'm sure I can fit it in. No, some of the meetings will run early and I'll go to the loo or I'll grab lunch. And I go, okay. And then they come to me at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening and they go, don't ever do that to me again.
Yeah.
And I go, I did not do anything to you. You did this to yourself. Again, it's like Amanda says, you got to train your environment on how they want to be treated. Because executives don't know. They think they're superhuman and they can do all these things. And the moment you start training them, they start slowly going, oh, actually, they know exactly what they're doing. And it's that light bulb moment when the exec goes, actually, they know what they're doing. Let me listen to them, is when the role opens up for you. And that was, I remember once with my executive, I said, well, you've got a full day and you're flying out in the evening. Do you want me to cut your day short and you can go see your kids before you head up to the airport? And they were like, no, it's fine. I'll FaceTime them on the way to the airport. And they ran late. And I said, and they phoned me and they said, can you, and my phone died or whatever the case is. I need a new charger, whatever, you know how it goes. And I said, you put the wheels in motion when you said yes to everything. And ever since that day, every time they fly out at 3 o'clock, I don't book anything from 3 until they fly. Because there's certain things, and they've learned, and they'll say to their colleagues, and they'll say, I don't take meetings after 3 because I'm flying out, or I'm going to see a client, or whatever the case is. And that is exactly what Amanda says. Train them on how to do things and how they need to listen to you because you know best. I mean, executives and the well-being and the health of executives is a big thing. I mean, we think burnout as assistants is something. Burnout as an executive is a whole different ballgame. And another role of an assistant is to ensure that your executive doesn't reach that point where they actually hit that barrier or that wall and they burn out. They're out for 6 weeks, because being out for 6 weeks is not nice. So I always say, listen to me, I know best. And I'm not doing it because I want you out the office or I want an early day or whatever. I'm doing it for your health, your well-being, and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good way of making sure that they don't burn out is to really spend the time to understand their ebbs and flows and where their energy is and where their priorities outside of work are. And again, that's having that conversation with them, isn't it? And really starting to, in the initial sense, particularly with new executives, but even if you've been working with your executive a while, it's really studying them, isn't it? And really understanding them, where you will start to really work at a more strategic level. So I've got one last question, and this revolves around the sessions that Amanda did for us this week. And it was a really interesting, I've never seen it described like this before, Amanda, and that's getting stuck in the drift. I just thought that was a really visually, I really understood what you meant about how we what we're paid for effectively, how we make things happen. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more around setting goals and objectives, and when they're not being met by executives or colleagues. Again, how do you have those conversations with your executives to go, okay, it seems to me like we're stuck in the drift, we're not meeting goals, we're not, the objectives that we've set seem to have disappeared. How do you start those conversations?
Yeah, I think that the first thing that I always, and this is something I think any organization go through, and this is similar to what we've just been discussing, which is shiny thing syndrome, is that we always have these big audacious goals that any business set, their strategic plan, what they hope to achieve. And, you know, that drills down, that filters right down throughout the business. And depending where you sit, you'll have your own set of objectives that your executive and you equally are responsible for and working towards. And ultimately, you know, as an assistant, they pay you to keep that on track, to keep us tracking that way and not getting distracted by all the things that come, which is the drift that can occur. And before you know it, you're in the drift, and you're fully in the drift, and you have to get yourself back on course. So I think that one of the biggest, the most valuable things to do here, and something that I often, share with a lot of executive assistants that I work with, is keeping regular tallies on how you're doing. And this is really just creating a simple dashboard where you've got some real clear clarity around what is the objectives for our team, our organization, maybe the business, depending where you sit, and having regular reviews on where we're at. Because that's the thing that can happen. If we're not checking this frequently, we will be in the drift before we know it. And then we have to try to get back on course. And it's so much harder to get back on course once you start going a different way. It's way harder than just keeping regular check-ins. So I think that the first part to that is having your own way to track this and measure this is really important. And it's going to be different for everyone. Some people use an Excel spreadsheet. Some people have their own system where it's all mapped out. Some people just use calendars to map that out. However you choose to do it, have a way that you can clearly identify what are our goals and are we on track? And it should just be a simple yes or no. You should have clarity around the milestones that you need to meet. And are we there or are we not? And if we're not, then it's a matter of having that conversation. And really, this is something that I would be incorporating in your catch-ups with your executive. Maybe not weekly, unless, of course, there's something they need to know. So if you're noticing that things are going off course, and there are going to be weeks that you go off course, that's fine if it's like one-off here and there, because there are always going to be other things that come up, some emergencies that need to be taken care of that takes you off the main course. However, if you're going that way ongoing, then it becomes a problem. So you'd be observing it and keeping a close eye on it. And then if you find that 2 weeks down the track, you're still off course, it's a matter of letting them know. But I would still be letting them know earlier. I'd be saying, hey, you know that we've just slightly gone this way. Does that work? Are we still okay with that? And it's just a matter of having those regular check-ins with your executive about that.
Yeah.
And the team.
Yeah, it's setting up. We've got some templates on how you can set up meetings with your executive. And we say something like 15 minutes a day minimum, and then a big catch up once a week. And then I think we've got something around every quarter having a very detailed conversation about where you are with objectives and goals for both the executive, the organisation, and the assistant. So again, we can put that up for everybody so they know how to set those meetings up in the diary. Sherwin, to bring you in, have you had those conversations with your executive in the past, and how did they go down?
So very early on in my career, I think I just left it, and we managed the noise when it happened, right? And slowly you start realizing that actually I want to keep the noise to a minimum. So I'm going to start reminding you, like Amanda said, every single time something happens, I would remind them, listen, this has happened. We need to do this. We're now focusing on this. Leave the shiny toy alone. We need to do what we need to do. And like you say, what we've started doing is, my boss and I in her office, what we've done is we put up a mind map. And the mind map has the goals for the year. And what I do is every time she tries something we put it on the mind map, and we try and tie it back to something of the goal. If it doesn't fit, then we know we're drifting. Either we need to add another thing to the goal of the company, or the goal of what she's trying to do. And if we add it, what are the trade-offs? So we have that conversation. And that happens, like you say, on a quarterly basis. We do this, we go back to the board and we try and figure out what fits in where. Having that conversation, on the other hand, is, in the beginning it was hard, because it's like, what do you know about telling your boss what they're doing, right? So you sit back and you go, well, I'm just here, again, I'm just an assistant. I'm here to help them. So whatever they're going to do, I'm going to try and help them do it. But then I always say when you start with an assistant, when you start with an exec, to have that chemistry session, and in that session you can kind of figure out exactly what you can and what you cannot tell them. And I think what I've learned with my exec now is that she's pretty open to criticism and pretty open to ideas, which is really nice. So I can go back to her and say, you just screwed up the mind map because this doesn't fit in anywhere. What do we do? And then often we'll have a 20-minute conversation around just that one point. And it will fit in, or she'll say, actually, can you do these things for me? I really want to put this in because I think it would help the business. And being able to have that conversation. Often assistants are too scared to have the conversation, or they're worried that they're going to get pushed back, or your executive is going to come back to you and say, who the hell do you think you are this is what I want to do and I want to do it now. But again, it's showing them that if they do it, it doesn't align. Like Amanda says, you're in the drift. We've been drifting for 3 weeks. There's no way by the end of quarter one we're gonna get to the goals. What do we do? Showing them, again, calendar, showing them the mind map, showing them that the puzzle doesn't fit with that piece is a big thing. So I've learned, and assistants need to learn, to have tough conversations. We often steer away from them. And you're too scared to have that conversation because you think once you have that conversation, it's going to impact your career along the way. But actually having a conversation right at the beginning saying, I'm here to help. And when you go off course, I will call it out, is a big thing. So go to your manager or your exec and say, this is why I'm here. You hired me to do a role. And when things happen that I don't think fits the business or fits what you're trying to do, I'm going to call it out. And I'm not calling it out to make you feel bad. I'm calling it out so that and I always say to my boss, so that we can reach the objectives. Because it's not my objective, it's not your objective. We're a team, so it's our objectives.
Absolutely. It's so powerful, actually. We could have, again, a whole conversation around the language that assistants should be using with their executive to make them realise that you are part of a team. There was something that both of you mentioned, and I just want to finish on that point. And it's important for assistants to understand where their executives keep their objectives and their goals, and wherever it happens to be. As Amanda said, it could be as simple as an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a mind map, it could be a really detailed project management tool that they use. Whatever it happens to be, you've got to understand the technology or the tools that they're using to detail their objectives. It's whatever it happens to be. They might have a whole load of stuff that keeps them on track. But it's really important, if it means you have to go and do a project management 101 course or just understand those tools, it's so important to be on their page when it comes to this stuff. So I think that's everything that we've covered, everything that we've gone through in the last 4 modules. Next week, we've got a module around burnout for assistants and setting boundaries. So I just want to finish, it's a big topic, but I just want to finish, if you've got one tip each on how you've set boundaries, either in your life or at work. So Amanda, have you got just one golden nugget that you can give us around setting boundaries?
Oh, put me on the spot, Nikki. One golden tip that I would say around boundaries. Know what they are. I would say learn what your boundaries are, because if you don't know what you're okay doing and what you're not okay doing, then you're going to say yes, because we'll just say yes to everything because we don't know what we stand for. So really, I would say take a minute to just understand where do you draw the line for yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually spend the time working out what your priorities are, because again, it's not, sometimes we just don't know until we really think about it, the why behind what we do. Sherwin, anything you can add?
So that was going to be mine. Mine was so mine was going to be know where you draw the line. But I also think for me, in terms of knowing your boundaries, is knowing so having that open dialogue and knowing exactly what the other person is thinking. Because if you're closed off, they're always going to try and push the boundaries. And to not be a yes person. I mean, so often assistants in the beginning of their careers or in the middle of their careers, and assistants that haven't been empowered are yes people because they feel they need to impress. Your role is not to impress. And I keep saying this to people. Your role as an assistant is not to impress your boss. They were impressed when they saw your CV. They hired you for a reason. You've already impressed them. Your role is now to make them better. And you don't have to be a yes person to make them better. You actually need to be a no person to make them better. Because the more you say no, the more they realize they've overshot the mark and they've committed to something that they cannot do. So your role as an assistant to be a no person, and not no for everything, but be a no person in terms of, no, you cannot do that because you've got that. No, we cannot have that. I think that is wrong. And be opinionated about it. Don't hold your opinions in, because the minute you hold your opinions in, people start taking advantage of you and they start pushing that line further and further and further. Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we've got a whole session on that next week. We're going to be doing a whole load of stuff around avoiding burnout, understanding the causes of it and what it looks like, and then how you can set boundaries to make sure that you're honouring yourself and your priorities. So thank you guys so much for the last hour. It's always so informative to have you both with us and going through some of the modules in a bit more detail. That's everything. So I really appreciate you being with us. Thanks so much to all of the participants today, and we'll make sure that this goes up for everybody to watch when they need to.